Okay, so your book draft, Superintelligence, Intelligent Housing, landed on my desk. And wow, the title alone, that really grabs you. We're really diving into the future of where we live. And with AI exploding like it is now, who knows what we'll find?
Yeah, and what's striking is this book, it doesn't mess around right from the start. It basically says our current housing systems are, and I'm quoting here, non-intelligent. Not exactly a glowing review of our homes.
Non-intelligent housing. I am looking at my apartment a little differently now, but what does that even mean? What makes a house non-intelligent? We've got walls, roofs, plumbing working. Isn't that like the bare minimum?
Think of it this way. We treat houses like, stocks or bonds more often than actual homes.
Yeah.
It's all about the buying, the selling, the renting, not so much about if these spaces actually help us live better lives.
You're hitting a nerve there. Like, the system's built for making deals, not for the people who actually live in these places day to day. And to figure out how we even got here, your book takes us way back, right? Caves to castles, the whole shebang.
Absolutely. And it points out something most people don't realize. Owning land, like we take for granted, that's a pretty new idea, historically speaking.
Hmm.
For most of human history, especially in indigenous cultures, land was shared, not something you claimed as your own little kingdom.
Yeah, you mentioned Native American communal land use. Really makes you rethink this whole idea of property we have today. It's such a
Mhm.
different way of looking at things.
Exactly. And that contrast makes you think, how do we go from shared land to this is mine, pay up? And the bigger question, what's that shift done to how we live now, good, bad, or otherwise?
It is easy to forget that things weren't always this way. I mean, you even talk about ancient Egyptians, right? They built their homes out of mud brick, and they still figured out early insulation to beat that desert heat. Talk about working with what you've got.
It's amazing, right? Thousands of years ago, and people were already thinking creatively about shelter, using whatever tech they had to adapt. But as societies got more complex, so did the whole who controls the land issue.
Cue the feudal system. I'll admit, calling it the original pyramid scheme in the book, that got a laugh out of me.
Hey, it's a funny image, but it makes you think. You had the king at the top, all the power, all the land. He'd give chunks to nobles, but in exchange for, well, pretty much everything they had.
And speaking of pyramids, we've got visuals for our listeners showing this whole hierarchy, king at the top, trickling down to, well, the folks who had the least power.
And that visual really hits home how much power was at the tippy top.
Yeah.
Now, this system, yeah, it created stability, but also led to huge inequality, which, surprise, surprise, is something we're still dealing with in landlord-tenant relationships today.
Which brings us right to today, doesn't it? Because that power dynamic, the landlord, the tenant, it's like a direct inheritance of that feudal system. It's like every landlord got their own little fiefdom. And when you think about it, don't we all have those mini kingdom moments, right? Maybe it's the rent going up way too high, or a landlord who, let's just say, isn't winning any most responsive awards.
It's like the system's almost designed to create those problems. In the book, it actually compares our current housing situation to, get this, a leaky pipe.
Okay, a leaky pipe. I like where this is going.
We keep trying to patch it up, but maybe, just maybe, it's time to rip the whole thing out and start fresh.
Love that analogy. Because, yeah, it's not just about individual landlords, right? It's the whole system itself that pushes people to see homes as dollar signs first, places to live second.
Exactly. And that focus on profit, it often comes at a cost. The cost being creating spaces where people, families, communities can actually thrive. I mean, look at the 2008 housing crisis, right?
Yeah.
Textbook example of what happens when money matters more than people's well-being.
Yeah, and your book doesn't let us off the hook as individuals either. It argues that this whole my house is my investment mentality, it's actually hurting communities, maybe even more than it helps. Like, we're so busy thinking about some future profits that we're ignoring what our neighborhoods need right now.
It's like this collective blind spot we have. There's this one visual from the book that really stuck with me. A rundown, empty building casting a shadow over an entire street. Just one property, neglected, and the impact it has.
It's like that saying, one bad apple, but for houses. One neglected property can drag down everything around it. So if our current system is, to use your words, this leaky pipe, how do we fix it? Your book goes to some pretty wild places, starting with, wait for it, a superintelligence calling all the shots.
I know. It sounds like we're jumping straight into science fiction, but hear me out. The book asks this really interesting question. What if we just handed the keys to the entire housing market, the whole shebang, over to a super advanced AI?
It's like that whole idea floating around that in the future, no one will own anything. But now we're applying it to real estate. part of me's thinking, okay, that's a bit out there, but another part of me is like, wait, could that actually work?
$1 million question, right? I mean, imagine if homelessness wasn't a thing anymore. This superintelligence could make sure everyone has a safe, decent place to live. Land could be something we share again, like it was for centuries. Rent, if you even call it that, could be next to nothing.
Sign me up. That sounds amazing. But I'm guessing there's got to be a trade-off somewhere. You don't get something for nothing, right?
Right, you are. The book talks about this idea of a Netflix for housing app. Basically, you subscribe to different living spaces based on what you need. Need a home office for a month? Boom, done. Want to change the scenery? You're off to a beach bungalow. Super efficient,
Yeah.
right? But it does make you think twice about how much control we'd be giving up.
It's that classic dilemma. Do we prioritize what's best for everyone, even if it means giving up some individual choice? Not an easy question to answer. But okay, let's lighten the mood a little. Your book also dives into these super personalized living spaces, right? It's like having this AI landlord who can remodel your place on a whim.
Talk about an upgrade. And this is where things get really interesting. This whole idea of a home that learns what you like, adapts to you in real time.
Yeah.
Your every need anticipated before you even realize it.
Smart homes on steroids? But hold on, your book takes things even further. Are you telling me we might not even need houses in the future? Did I read that right? Okay, we're going to talk about this whole no more houses thing. That's going to need some unpacking. It went from 0 to 100 real quick there.
All right. It's definitely a hold my drink moment in the book, but that's what I liked about it. It doesn't just stick to the safe, predictable solutions. It makes you stretch your thinking about what housing even is.
So walk me through it. No houses? Seriously, how's that even work? What are we living in, like futuristic bubbles or something?
Well, the book actually talks about nanobots. Those microscopic robots everyone's talking about. The idea is they could actually create structures around us, protective, adaptable, on demand. Like imagine your clothes becoming your shelter, changing with your needs.
Okay, now we're in sci-fi territory. I can't help but picture those movies, people walking around in these high-tech suits that are like their own little portable environments.
It sounds wild, but when you really think about it, what does a house actually do? It protects us from the weather, gives us safety, privacy, hopefully a space that feels, like IRS. Could technology, maybe even nanobots someday, do those same things, just, well, differently?
That little drawing on your book cover, just a simple house, it's making a lot more sense now. Maybe the house isn't the point, it's what it represents, right? Home security, a place to belong.
Exactly. And that feeling, that's universal. Across cultures, across time, even if the buildings themselves have changed a lot.
Yeah.
Your book really makes you realize how much we take for granted about how we live now. That we think this is the only way, but the possibilities are huge.
This whole deep dive, I'm telling you, it's been quite the ride. Ancient mud brick homes to AI remodeling our houses on a whim. And now this. You've given me a lot to think about, that's for sure.
It's a lot to process, for sure. But I think the most important takeaway is we have a say in this. The future of housing, it's not set in stone. We don't have to settle for leaky pipes in systems that aren't working.
So what does this all mean for, the average person, someone listening who's maybe renting a tiny apartment right now, feeling the squeeze of how expensive it is?
It means things are changing, and the future might look completely different from what we're used to. Maybe it's AI managing things so it's fairer, maybe it's personalized spaces, or even, maybe we redefine what shelter even means. The key is to stay curious, keep asking those what-if questions, and never stop imagining a better way.
I like that a lot. It's not about having all the answers right now. It's about being open to what's possible. And who knows, maybe those possibilities lead us to a way of living that's more affordable, better for the planet, even just, well, more enjoyable.
I think so too. This deep dive, I hope it gets people thinking, questioning, and reimagining what home can be. Because we all deserve a place where we can truly thrive, right?
Couldn't agree more. So to everyone listening, next time you're at home, take a look around. Really look what's working, what's not, and most importantly, what could be. Because the future of housing, it's not preordained. We're all creating it each and every day.